myself again.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Thursday night means I'm joined by Supermac and Gibbo. Good evening, lads.
Hi, Hi, John.
Cheers, mate. Great to see you, lads. Great to see you. And we're getting closer to Eddie Howe's first game, and it's starting to feel like Christmas Eve. We've had a big build-up to this with the international break, but as always, myself and Malcolm and Gibbo are here to talk Newcastle United with you and get your questions out there. And we're going to go straight to questions because we've got over 130 people watching right from the start. And tickets coming in, the ticket tape's going, it's flying. So there's lots of questions. John says, evening everybody. Is the departure of Hoffman ironic? He should be booted out for what he did try to do and stop our takeover, but he's actually going because he failed to achieve this. It's a funny world. Yes, Malcolm, in the world of the Premier League, that wasn't really a shock to us Newcastle fans. I mean, he was in the job 18 months, and it did look as if he was brought in to try and stop it. And now he's gone. What did you make of that this week,
Malcolm? Yeah, I laughed my socks off. The anti and the negativity that's been chucked at this takeover, I can't help but feel that that it's hugely jealousy, and I think all wrapped up in fear of what could happen with Newcastle United over the next decade, and they're right to be fearful. You know, I go back to that clock face again of owners' wealth in the Premiership. 1 minute is 18 clubs of the Premiership. 4 minutes is Manchester City. Newcastle's wealth equals 55 minutes of that clock. The rest of the Premiership is frightened to death of what that could be coming against them. It's impossible for them to truly compete with what Newcastle have in their armoury and their bank for the coming years. And I can't help laughing my socks off, and I'm going to sit there and thoroughly enjoy it next to you, John.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I mean, from my point of view, isn't it ironic, Mark, when you look back at the Newcastle situation, for 14 years, we Geordies were slapped on the head by the Knowles around the country saying we're far too ambitious, we're far too demanding of Ashley and whoever his manager was at the time, whether it was Steve McLaren or Steve Bruce or Kinnear. We were far too demanding. We were demanding trophies. We've never demanded trophies since we last had one in 1969.
Yeah.
What we demand is that we're allowed to have hope. That's all we've asked for, not trophies. But we've been out of our box demanding far too much for 14 years. And so that we were ridiculed, and now we're ridiculed the exact opposite way because we're little rich boys and nobody likes the little rich boy in the room. So now it's the other way on. So, I mean, Geordies will just smile completely and say, yeah, sure, we're used with this. I mean, Alex Ferguson used to love having a siege mentality at Manchester United. Well, we can form a siege mentality. We won't worry too much about that. And by the way, it must be our turn on the law of averages. So hard lines to the rest of the country, and all power be to Newcastle United. Long overdue, I say. And I tell you why it's long overdue, because there's 52,000 fans, and there always have been, that supported failure. It's very easy to support what Manchester United had under Ferguson, what Arsenal had under Wenger, what Manchester City have now. It's easy to support that. It's not so easy to support in the numbers we do. We are the world's greatest authorities on failure, and we've still supported the club because that's what we believe.
Yeah, that support has been unfailing, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So, bring it on. We don't mind the odd jibe. We've had it when we were down at the bottom, so we don't mind it if we're up to the end.
Yeah. And Tom Dixon says, what kind of tactics in football do you expect Eddie Howe will play in his first game for Newcastle this weekend, Mal?
Quite the opposite to what we've been seeing over the past couple of years. Eddie Howe wants possession in the opponent's 18-yard box, where Steve Bruce wanted possession in his own 18-yard box. That's the major difference that Newcastle will look to get forward and hold the possession up there, putting the pressure on the opposition. You know, when you think that these last few games, Newcastle have been getting 22% possession, 20% possession. I think they even dropped under 20% once in one game. That was absolute sheer nonsense that was going on at St James Park. Eddie Howe will be quite the opposite. He'll be looking to attack, to hold possession in the opposing half as much as is possible. And if that doesn't inspire players, for heaven's sake, players don't want to play with their back to the wall all the while. You know, that just heaps pressure on them. You know, you can see the back line. They were jittery, and instead of pushing up, they dropped off. Eddie Howe will have them pushing up. Of that, I'm convinced. He'll have the midfield getting forward and supporting the guys up front. And Wilson, he's hardly had a bit of support since he's been here at Newcastle. All of a sudden now, blimey, he'll have players come running at him. And if ever there's a player that could thrive under what Eddie Howe does, it's Willock. Coming late into the box, supporting Wilson, looking for knockdowns. You know, and when he was on loan, we saw him score all of those goals in a few games. And we can see him doing that again. Eddie Howe is looking for players to go and do that all of the while. And I think his philosophy is that if we're going to win, better we win 4-3 than 1-0. That's Eddie Howe's philosophy. Let's go for it. And if the people on watching the game aren't thoroughly entertained, I shall be very surprised.
Yeah. John, same thoughts as Mal, do you think?
Yes, in the long term, absolutely no question about it whatsoever. He wants to attack, wants possession to be that much further up the field than it was. Newcastle will press from the front instead of pressing from the back. Newcastle, when they played under Steve Bruce, ran only one way, and that was back towards their own penalty area, and then form the Adrian's wall along the penalty area and defend with your life. It won't be like that. The only thing I would say is a tiny little note of precaution is that it'll be hard to do exactly what he wants to do in his first game because you haven't got the ammunition to do it. I mean, you know, when the manager that I sort of tried to compare him with without putting too much pressure on his shoulders is the philosophy of Kevin Keegan. But even when Kevin Keegan came into Newcastle, and you'll remember this, Steve, his first major signing was Killer Kilcline.
Yes.
The centre half, for all he was an attacking player, he realised the back door was open, and I think this will happen in January, Malcolm, as well. They will get in a defender, even though he plays on the front foot, because you've got to stop the ball at the back as well. And Killer Kilcline was the first guy that come in, and Kevin Keegan always said, for all the great players he got that was going forward, and by Jove, the entertainers, didn't he have some wonderful attacking players? But he said without getting Killer Kilcline to start with, you wouldn't have had the platform for Newcastle to become what they become. And I think you'll find that Eddie will be looking to produce a more forward-thinking team on Saturday and playing that way, but to completely play the Eddie Howe way will take more than the first game, because he's got to change the mindset of the players, which is all wrong. And by the way, the mindset was driven into them. This was the way they were told to think. He's got to change the mindset. And, I've been thinking about it, Mal and Steve. The interesting thing I find over in Newcastle is a two-edged sword here. We're about to start the Eddie Howe and the Amanda Staveley regime on Saturday. And the good news is also the bit of bad news. After going 11 games with no wins, we start with Brentford. And the next match is Arsenal away. Tricky, without question. But then the following two matches are Norwich and Burnley.
Both at home.
The first three games, guys, is Brentford, Norwich and Burnley. Now, all 9 points there are winnable. Now, that is the good news, because you don't want the new manager to start playing Manchester City, Manchester United and Liverpool. You want them to start with these three so we can get off to a bit of a flyer. But the whole point is that it's almost got to be a miracle from day one, because we have to get off to a flyer. We've got to take a good points haul from those first three home games because of what we know is coming in December. So it's a very interesting. We need to get off on the front foot on Saturday, and we need to beat Brentford. And I just happen to think this game is set up for us. We've got a new manager, a new philosophy, new owners. All the negativity's gone, all the toxic feelings gone. The ground will be bouncing, and we've got Brentford, who in the first 7 games when they came up, flew out the traps. 3 wins, 3 draws, 1 defeat. Flew out the traps. What have they done since? They've lost 4 on the trot. Now, maybe we can understand losing to Chelsea and Leicester, but when you then lose to Burnley and Norwich at home, Norwich went to Brentford knowing they were going to sack their manager at the end of the game. They still won, and they still sacked the manager because they knew what the future meant. Now, I think Brentford are set up to go on Skid Row, and we are set up to get our first victory. So I do think that the game has a great feel about it on Saturday, and all things being equal should go in our favour.
Me too. I've got a feeling of Bristol City when Keegan took over. It's got a feeling of that kind of game. Let's hope we don't put the jinx on it. Let's hope that's the case. Terry, I've got to agree. The Tyne Bridge does need a lick of paint. There was something in the Chronicle about that, Terry. The council, and R and the cost, etc. But I do believe it's going to be addressed, but not tonight, unfortunately, when you're looking at it. Brian Johnson. Not the Brian Johnson, but yes, you can pay on the door tomorrow. It's going to be tight, mate. We've got 180 bums on seats now, mate, and it's more or less chock-a-block. But yes, come along if you want to pay on the door, and I will put your name on the door. That's 2 people. Can't do it for everybody who's watching tonight, I'm afraid. We're more or less at breaking point tomorrow night. But yes, by all means, come along. Anybody wants to go, inboxes. I'm going to leave the link on Newcastle Legends on the shop. Up until about 9-10 o'clock tonight. Last chance to buy tickets. Great night, great support, and hopefully tomorrow night we'll have a total for how much NUFC Matters has raised over the last 18 months. It's I don't know what it is. It should be quite interesting. Mike Stewart says, "What do we make of the interest in Alec Witsel? I think he's exactly the type of player we need. He'll roll his sleeves up and get stuck into battle." And a touch of quality as well. The Geordie Parrot thinks he's too old. Mal, not really a name that I'm too up to date with. I've got to be perfectly honest, and I haven't had time to Google it. Alec Witsel, who is it?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I'm going to Google it because I did see Capital's attempt to fool Newcastle fans up at the ground the other day, where they were asking people about certain players, and they were fake players. He is real. He is real. Here we go. Alec Witzel, Borussia Dortmund. He's a Belgian professional footballer who plays for Bundesliga club Borussia Dortmund and the Belgian national team. He broke into Belgium's first team as a right winger. He can also play attacking midfielder though his natural position is a central midfielder. Well, we could do with one of them, Mal.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. I would imagine that that Amanda Stavely, along with the rest of the board, that she will be compiling a list. She will be looking for good advice from everybody there, and of course they're going to be listening very, very carefully to the new manager, and he will know the kind of players that he wants to make the team what he wants to ultimately see. And they've got to listen carefully to him. I think he's a very sensible fella, and I think he made great choices down at Bournemouth. And here, dear me, the whole of the game is going to be at his doorstep financially. He won't be so narrowly tied as he was at Bournemouth, and so, dear me, it's like he's sort of just been dropped into the jeweler's shop and told to help himself. That's the situation that he finds himself in, and so I don't think that we're going to hear very much of what Newcastle are after. We will find out when the players start to come in January. And Eddie Howe, he knows what he wants to make the side what he wants it to be, and I've got huge faith in him making the right choices and finishing up with exactly what he wants to go out and represent him, represent the board, and most importantly, represent the club. I'm always very careful about this particular period leading up to the January window. This is a time where clubs are looking at players and saying, hey, we want to get him out. Let's get him out. And so they start dropping all sorts of little stories into newspapers in the hope that they will grow. I know you've never been a part of that, John.
I don't know what you're talking about, Malcolm. No.
And it's a time to start getting rid of players that you don't want, more than quality coming on into the marketplace. And so I'm always a little bit wary about January, but nevertheless, I'm sure that they will be working now and getting people to talk to the clubs that have got players that the manager wants to bring in, and they'll just be looking to set things up. You mentioned Witzel. I'm always a little bit wary when I hear, oh, he's a central midfielder, but he's actually playing wide. I like players to play in their very best position, and that way you will get the best out of them. And also, I think there are one or two players. I mentioned Willock earlier on. We saw him scoring terrific goals, doing so well when he was on loan. He needs to find that artistry that he had. Everything that he had there, it's all sort of got lost in the mix. And if Eddie Howe can't bring it out of him, then the player's not good enough. And
what we've got, Mal, what we've got, and you're absolutely right, is that we can't do anything in the transfer market until January anyway. And apart from clubs driving at the players they want to get rid of into the public eye, agents are dropping names in all over the shop.
All over.
Public domain saying my boy is linked with Newcastle United because that's going to do their boy a bit of good. But we've got to get through something like 9 games before we can actually take to the roaring board.
And all critical, John.
And so when you look at those 9 games, Mal, and the start of the programme is very winnable, and you've got to fashion a good side out of what we've got, we're looking at people like Willock being able to produce something like what they did, to go back to being the smiling assassin that he was instead of having the cares of the world on his shoulders. We're looking at Fraser reacting to the appointment of his old manager and getting a lift from that and becoming what he wasn't under Bruce. And several other players. We're looking at Jamal Lewis, who has been frozen out of the first team picture for about 12 months now, and did well against Italy for Northern Ireland the other night, thinking this is a new opportunity for me. I'm starting with a clean sheet. I have ability. If he gets a kiss and a cuddle, it'll come out. That's the sort of guy he is. So we have got to get some reaction out of people like Willock and Fraser and Jamal Lewis now over these 9 games before we can get rescued in the transfer market, because we've still got to be very well in touch with everyone at the end of December. Otherwise,
exactly.
we're in big trouble. So I am looking right now to what we can do with Willock, what we can do with Fraser, what we can do with Jamal Lewis, what we might do with Dwight Gale, etc., etc.
Sure, and as you say, John, 9 games, the current players at the club have got those 9 games to seriously prove themselves to the manager.
Absolutely.
If they don't,
it's too late. It's too late.
Yeah, there's no room for dead wood, no room at all. And so, so Eddie Howe, he's got an awful lot on his plate, because he's not only looking elsewhere at what might be coming in January, but he's got to look seriously and be fair to all of the current players at Newcastle. And he's got to make some very harsh and hard decisions over this next few weeks.
By January the 1st, Malcolm, by January the 1st, he'll have made up his mind on 9/10 of the players that he's got tonight.
Yes.
By January the 1st, 9 more games, he'll know who he's willing to put faith in and who's a bit iffy and who's got no chance.
Sure. And there is one thing that I've really been puzzling over this week. I cannot, for the life of me, see him play 3 at the back. You know, the three centre halves.
No,
he won't play that. I'm pretty sure he'll go back to a flat back 4 with the fullbacks looking to attack at all times. And that means that all of a sudden there is a huge pressure on each centre half, because they're going to have to play on a 1-against-1 basis. They haven't known that for ages. And I don't know why Steve Bruce insisted, but
what are you?
Billy's got your wire again.
Here comes the dog.
So the barrel
he's
on his wire
he wants
again.
to get into the
What
show.
say is he's back.
But and so all of a sudden it's going to be a stark reality for whichever 2 centre halves play on Saturday against Brentford. because for the first time, they've got to face one against one and do the job and do it well.
Yeah, his preferred system is a flat back four, Mal, as you were saying, two central midfielders and wingers bombing on in support of two strikers, whether it be two in partnership like you and John Tudor, or whether it's Callum Wilson with say San Maximum on his shoulder. But he'll play with a flat back four. He'll play with two central midfielders, wingers bombing on with two guys up front. That is his preferred formula for his team. And that is more front foot than we've been for a little while. Because also, when we had Ritchie and Murphy, two out-and-out wingers that love to get to the dead ball line and cross the ball, really facing the other way and running back towards their own goal and trying to get in a sliding tackle. That is not their game. So at least they might now be able to play what they were brought to the club to play. And Malcolm might be able to sort out his legs and his dog. I'm absolutely intrigued by it.
Whilst Malcolm's sorting the dog out, any news on a director of football, John, from your point of view?
Well, interesting. Yes, I'm told it's very close, and it's between three. One is the guy that we've been talking about regularly and has been running up on there. The other's this guy Paynes, and a third guy who has not been named. And we know we've talked about Omar Overs at the old Arsenal guy, and we've talked about Brian Morwood. But it is down to a decision being made very, very quickly now. That is the next step. We've done the bit, and we've got the new owners in. We've got the new manager in. We've got rid of Ashley. We've got rid of Steve Bruce. We've got rid of Agnew and Clements. Lee Charnley will go presumably when they
gone now. I think he was terminated on the 7th of November.
Really?
Yeah, it was on Company's House. It was no announcement. His contract was terminated on the 7th.
Well, I mean, when we say lovely jubbly, we do mean lovely jubbly. But, it was as inevitable as light following day. It was just a matter of when it happens, as it was with the two other Steves, to follow the original Steve, Bruce, Agnew, Clements. That was all going to be cleared. And so we have a clean slate. But we do need this director of football in. It is as near as done. The button's just got to be pressed and the name then pops up. But yes, it is all good news because we know how to clear the decks. The final clearing of the decks, for me, having gone through Bruce, the coaches, Charnley, the final clearing of the decks is when we decide which players are surplus to requirement when Eddie decides that, be it initially in January and certainly at the end of the season. That then completes
June the 30th.
That then completes the whole kit and caboodle.
Before we plug the sponsors, Mal, I've got to ask you the question. Were you nervous as me and probably Gibbo watching Harry Kane the other night? Because I've got to be honest, it looked like he was playing probably the worst set of players out of that national country. It was a farce. I was looking at it going, no, he's going to beat Supermac's record, but he didn't. He got hooked.
I don't think I've seen such a poor side as Harry Kane scored the 4 against. Yes, I was getting a bit nervous, I have to say, albeit I hold the record at Wembley and I'm equal with Willie Hall, who scored 5 over in Windsor Park, Belfast. He scored 5 there. I think it was 1938. I scored 5 at Wembley, so I've got that record. And Harry Kane was away from home, but so I share it with Willie Hall, and and it certainly looked as if Harry Kane was going to do it. He's had a poor old season in a lot of ways, but he's quite uncanny in the way that he can just keep scoring, even though he's not playing well.
The interesting thing, Malcolm, did you notice before the game with San Marino, he was pleading with Southgate not to leave him out because of the opposite he wanted to play. We know why he wanted to play. Cocky Leaky Juniors would beat San Marino. So, I mean, that's how good San Marino.
Yeah,
The world authorities have got to start doing something about this. They've got to have an elimination competition between sides like San Marino.
Yes,
so
or have a category B competition.
Or category Z in their case.
Well, in Z, yes. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look
at
it,
it all seeded.
San Marino North, England 10 doesn't do football, international football, a lot of good, does it? I mean, it is a bit of a joke. And then all of a sudden, Harry Kane, good luck to him because a fabulous player and a great finisher. But he scores 3 against Moldova, some 4 against San Marino. All of a sudden, he's going to be England's greatest all-time goal scorer. Well, if you can fill your boots against that lot, you will end up England's top goal scorer.
Yeah, and there are a lot of those sides around now, John.
No. I don't want to take anything away from Harry because he
wouldn't
a quality player. And I think he's just coming out of the great sulk, isn't he? The great sulk.
Sure. You know, yes, because they were making a thing about overtaking Jimmy Greaves and what have you. But back then, when Jimmy Greaves was playing for England, there were only half a dozen internationals in a year, if that.
Absolutely.
You know, now you can treble that number. Yeah. Sorry, Steve.
I'm saying Andy was kicking a pig's bladder around.
Yes.
Yeah, with a big lace in it.
Yeah. I had this conversation the other night, and like, if Harry Kane does beat Alan Shearer's record in the Premier League, I'm going to make sure that we point out that it's Jimmy Greaves who actually holds the record, because it's before the Premier League. Greaves is the greatest all-time goal scorer.
Yes,
and it's true, Steve. The history goes beyond the Premier League. I mean, the history is a history of football over 130 years or whatever it is. Not just the Premier League. But I tell you what, enough of that. I think next season, with all the changes we've had, Joe Linton could well be the top goal scorer in English football, and there'll be a new kid on the block, Steve, and we'll all be doing the old Joe Linton song.
John, you promised me you wouldn't drink on these shows.
Sorry?
You promised me and Malcolm you wouldn't drink on these shows.
I'm trying to recover from this obsession we'll have that I'm biased, and actually I am biased.
Great name of this particular texter. He's called Baboon Bottom. He says, "Evening, gents. I'm coming to my first home game since Mike and Rafa go against Brentford. My plan is to call at a bar, maybe Rosie's, and then call to the Dog and Parrot to see Steve and Malcolm." Well, we'll look forward to seeing you, Baboon Bottom. Make sure you introduce yourself. And yes, we are pre-match and after-match at the Dog and Parrot. Get yourself across to see us at 1 o'clock. We do a pre-match in there, myself and Malcolm, and then after the match, we do a post-mortem. Hopefully, we'll be doing some kind of jig to the music that they're playing there. But we will see. Big thanks to the sponsors, as always, Spider VPN. Big shout out to you guys. For all your internet security, Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of your search list. And to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors as well. 0191 389 7245. And at qtechshop.co.uk. The makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. And the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. Thanks to Jab Signature as well, jabsignature.co.uk for making our flyers. If you're a first-time visitor, please subscribe. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. We still do 7 shows a week. And if you want to hit the thumb up, that likes the video, it does us a big favour. Click share to share to your social media. Drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded fans. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Means you can listen to it in your car or when you're out for a walk. Don't forget, tomorrow night, ticket holders, we will be having our Christmas do. Gibbo and Supermac will be on stage around about 9 o'clock, but doors open at 7. Junior Turner's coming along to sing his track, and there'll be plenty of good crack. And do bring your wallet or your purse, because we're raising money for the food bank. We've got a fantastic auction, some fantastic prizes, a couple of raffles to go as well. We're going to try and raise as much money as possible. The week after, same venue, same time, different date, and evening with Peter Beardsley. NewcastleLegends.com is where you can buy your tickets for that, £15. And that is click and shop on that website. Me and Malcolm will be at Bobix, which was the Punch Bowl in Jesmond, on the 9th of December. Again, another food banks event. And Bobix.com is where you buy your tickets for that. You can donate to the food bank using the website nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. You can also buy tickets for the signed Peter Beardsley trainers, which will be drawn on the 26th of November. And they will be custom made, custom designed for you. That is the design, and signed by Peter Beardsley. Don't forget as well, Groupon and Voucher. We have got an evening with Peter Beardsley next year, early next year, 30th of January 2022. And you can pick up a present for somebody maybe over Christmas on Groupon or Voucher for that event. So get yourself onto there. And tomorrow, the Three Amigos is live, but it's at 3:30. Myself, Neil Mitchell, and Steve Hasty will be live 3:30 till 5:30 tomorrow afternoon, doing a pre-gig talking, and we'll be looking back over the last 7 days in Newcastle United. And Saturday morning, we've got the views from the Middle East, of course, with Stu Penman, Neil Mitchell, and our good friend from Saudi, Al Walid. So plenty of content coming up, and people keep asking how Mick Lowes is. Well, he's on the mend. He's recovering, but it is going to be a long road. So I will keep you updated, and I'm sure keep an eye on his Twitter. You will be able to find out how he is doing. And as always, I do like to say thank you to the people who are subscribed. We hit 44,000 this week, 44,000 subscribers, which is amazing. So thank you for everybody. We never take that for granted. It's always nice to have all the kind comments that come in the comments box as well from everybody. So thanks very much. Okay, back to the questions. Chris reckons that Charlie's still at the club according to the BBC. Not according to Company's House, Chris. Contract was terminated. That's what we've seen anyway. That's the research we've seen. It would make sense if he was still there. There hasn't been an announcement. You would have thought it would have been in the media that Lee Charnley had left the building, but nothing being there. So it'll be interesting to see whether he is or he isn't. But certainly on Company's House, he has been, terminated as a director. That was my understanding. So if he is still there, I'm not sure what he is doing. He does make a nice cuppa. I can testify to that, though, Geordie. Rachel Lilly says, Steve Agnew's comments are ridiculous. He's got to find someone else to blame. Talk about slope and shoulders. Yeah, John, that's in response to the interview with Steve Agnew after he left, and didn't like the criticism, did he, about the part-time training?
No. It obviously struck a chord. And I think it's part of the propaganda that is going out in defense of Steve Bruce, who's got a lot of supporters up here, and who think he's a nice guy, who enjoyed him, who got stories out of him, which is very important to journalists, etc., etc. And I think this was just, the guy that wrote it is a dear friend of mine, so I'm not having a dip at him, but he was a Steve Bruce guy. And this was part of that support. You would expect Steve Agnew to say that. You know why? Because when Brucey gets the next job, if Brucey gets the next job, and it'll probably be with Cocky Leaky Juniors, Agnew wants to be his number two. So he's bound to say what he said. But I mean, the bottom line is it would have been better to say nothing, because regardless of talking how much time was spent looking at videos on it, the bottom line was that for 2 years we were dire. We were floating in sea, rudderless, and going nowhere very, very fast. So don't try to justify it. It's a bit late to do that with Geordies. That ship's well gone, and we're on another ship now. Let's forget about that and concentrate on the future. That's what matters. And you know what? We have got the situation we've got here where Eddie Howe's having to dig us out because of the regime that went before. We are in a mess, stranded down at the bottom. Had the previous regime nothing to do with us being in that position? Let them look at the league table if they want to see exactly what were the fruits of labour.
And didn't you get the impression, guys, that to a vast degree, it was quite obvious that manager and coaches didn't really care that much. They didn't seem to really want to get things put right. They were just happy to allow things to amble on. And
I think, Malcolm, my feeling is that apart from anything, whether they cared, which is a heck of a thing to accuse them of, and I worry a little bit about that. However, having said that, I don't think, Mal, they had the ability to do anything about it. That's one of the troubles. I don't think they had the ability to.
Sure, okay, John, but they did have the ability to be a full-time trio.
Oh, without a shadow of doubt, yes.
And work the players, work the team, get things put right, get things strengthened, and improve matters. But and when I was managing, I had a coach called Ray Harford. If I had gone around like Steve Bruce has done, he would have been so angry at me. He would have been banging on my door every afternoon saying, look, we need to talk. We need to get this sorted out. I need to train those players a minimum of 4 days a week, and even more, because he desired success all of the while. He wanted to see everybody improving, himself as well. And I haven't seen that at Newcastle for quite a long time. And I've sat at games and I felt really sad watching some of it, thinking, what the hell are we doing? 3 centre halves. What the hell are we doing playing a right back at centre half with 2 other centre halves? And I can keep going on and on and on with all different comments. What are we doing with 2 wingers playing at fullback? Get them up there. Get the crosses coming in. Both of them are super crossers of the ball, but that's no good if they're back on in the Newcastle penalty area, for heaven's sake. And it might sound a bit ridiculous, but if somebody said, well, I reckon Steve Bruce was sabotaging the club, I couldn't mount much of an argument against the comment.
I know what you mean. It's,
Yeah?
you don't like to think that.
But what could turn into the beauty of the situation is that we now have a manager who is absolutely, totally opposite. And he'll be working and grafting the players. They were saying to Steve Bruce, we need to do more work. We need to train more. We need to do, and they will get it in spades with Eddie Howe. And I'm so looking forward to seeing just what impact Eddie Howe has had in the last 10 days. And I think he'll have had a huge impact. Players with a manager like Eddie Howe, they love that, because Eddie Howe will be all the time creating a challenge. This is my challenge to you today. This is my challenge to you tomorrow. And so it will be going on. And all the time he'll be challenging them to be better. And I don't think they've had that challenge for a very long time. And so I want to see how they react to Eddie Howe's challenges come Saturday against Brentford. I'm so looking forward to this. I really am.
Yeah, I think we all are. It's exciting times. The best way to get to Coleman's is probably on the metro, mate. When you're up, or your taxis are going to be a little bit too much. But yeah, get yourself down to the coast and get yourself onto the metro. That's the best way to do that journey. Rachel just talking about the do tomorrow night. For those who are going tomorrow night and haven't got time to come onto the chat for the Three Amigos, have a great night. I'll be sat at home on my own with a gin. It's a pity you can't come, but yes, looking forward to seeing quite a lot of you tomorrow night. It's good to put some names to faces. John says, do you agree that the set pieces under the previous coaches were scandalously abysmal? Surely that situation must improve under Ed. I think it just comes back down, John, to what Malcolm's been saying. You know, like, there hasn't really been a great deal going on at the training ground. And I think we saw more in some of the footage coming out of SJP on social media of throw-ins and free kicks. And there was those static free kick boards, which every bit of historical footage of Steve Bruce and his coaches at the training ground involved him standing walking around with his hands in his pockets. The first thing we saw of Eddie Howe is him sprinting past, and I'm not making it up. It's there for all to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was right in the middle, wasn't he? And he was and he was gesticulating all the time, so giving positive orders and messages to all the players that were surrounding him.
What you were saying, Steve, when you were talking there about where throw-ins, where set pieces, where whatever. I mean, even in the last match, when it was Graham Jones rather than the Steve Bruce regime, we have the goalkeeper sent off in the 93rd minute, and we've got a free kick, and John Joe Shelby launches it outside of the back post, where it drifts away.
No, it was outside the penalty area.
Instead of putting it on top of the goalkeeper, who is an outfield player, and having everybody pile in on top of the goalkeeper. I mean, that is a typical example of the mental approach, the mindset of the team, just going into automatic pilot and doing what they've done for the last 2 seasons, when really that was almost a golden opportunity. The golden opportunity would have been a proper penalty in that had it happened, which is what should have happened. It didn't. But to waste that free kick at the end, didn't get his gloves dirty. I've had dirtier gloves in the garden than he had playing in goal for Newcastle United.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. That ball ought to have been launched on top of that bloke, and he should have been terrified. It's 3 6-foot centre halves. Joe Wilson,
absolutely,
and everybody piling in on top of him and having a go. We didn't do it. We wasted the free kick, and that is the way we've been at set pieces, and that has got to change. And it's got to change big time.
Yeah, and it's not just set pieces, John. It's not. Yeah, it's not just set pieces. It's generally through the game, as the game is progressing. People switch off. I've watched players, because the ball's gone 20 yards away from them, they switch off. Oh, that's it. I'm not involved now. Everybody's involved. It doesn't matter what distance you are from the ball. You've got to be working all of the time. Even when the ball's back in one of the penalty areas and you're on the halfway line as the centre forward, you've got to be working the centre halves. You've got to be shifting them about, keep them just looking to upset their equilibrium all the while, and not just standing around going, "Oh well, I'll react when the ball gets near to me." It's a shocking attitude to have, and it doesn't fill teammates and indeed the crowd with any confidence whatsoever, and that's where I'm really fully expecting to see a complete turnaround come Saturday, a total sea change in the attitude of players as to how they go about the game, and I just hope that the players really do react to Eddie Howe. I really do, because I know he can get better out of them all of the while, and he wants to do that. So, I'm wanting to see players show a new side to each and every one of them that we haven't yet seen. Because Steve Bruce didn't have the ability to get it out. His coaches, well, honestly, I'm really not sure. I think coaches, the word coach in regards to them is a misnomer. That they were good company for Steve Bruce, I think.
Well, it's a Saturday game. Good 3:00 kick-off. Newcastle are looking, of course, for the first Premier League win of the season. This will be the 12th attempt to try and end a 5-match winless run on home territory. Obviously, the international weeks have been and gone. On Wednesday, the training session, we saw international return of Lewis, Kraft, Shaw, Hendrick, Dubravka and Anderson. So they were all involved. Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser also featured in that training session. The only man out remains Paul Dummett, so still on the injured list. As for the visitors, Christopher Adja, Mad Sorensen, David Raya, Matthias Jorgensen, Shandon Baptiste and Joshua Da Silva are all out due to injury, but Johan Wissa could return. Brentford remain unbeaten in their opening 4 games on the road following promotion, thanks to a 0-0 draw at Palace, 1-1 draw at Villa, 2-0 success at Wolves, and 2-1 victory at West Ham. The last away fixture, though, was a 3-1 defeat at Burnley. Thomas Frank, of course, is in charge, and they come to Tyneside on the back of 4 successive Premier League defeats, the most recent of which saw them beaten 2-1, as we mentioned earlier, by the bottom team Norwich. They do have an ex-Magpie, of course, leading the line, Ivan Toney, who's netted twice in the Premier League so far this season, incidentally, both away from home. And assuming that he starts, it'll be his first senior out at St James's Park since he came on as a late substitute in a 3-3 draw against Manchester United in January 2016. Interesting. Obviously, referee has been announced. Let me see. It's Robert Jones and Kevin Friends on VAR. No TV coverage. And basically, lads, looking for your predictions. So, John, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have a friend on VAR for a start, because we need all the friends we can get. So I'm feeling very reassured.
Very good, John. Very good.
And if we're looking at what's going to happen on Saturday, I think the game's set up for us, as I said earlier. I think they're on a downer. And to lose to Burnley and Norwich last time out, their bubble has burst. Our bubble's just been inflated by Eddie Howe getting the job. It's all pluses instead of minuses. We need the win. I think it can happen. In fact, I'm convinced it can happen. What we cannot allow it to happen is it to be the Ivan Toney show. Ivan Toney comes back up to Newcastle and he shows what we gave way. He shows that he's a Premier League centre forward, etc., etc. It was set up for that to happen before we had all the changes. We cannot have that. We wanted to be the Callum Wilson show or somebody else's show, anybody else's show that is in black and white. There's two things, guys, that we have not done this season in 11 Premier League games. The two things we haven't done is we haven't won and we haven't kept a clean sheet. So I'm going to get carried away by the occasion and say we're going to bust both those dreadful records. We're going to win, and we're going to win 2-0, so it's a clean sheet. There you go, fellas.
Very good. Very confident. A lot of people confident in the chat. A lot of predictions coming in, 2s and 3s. Malcolm, are you as confident?
Yes, I am. If there isn't a really powerful reaction from all of the players against Brentford, I shall be so disappointed, and I'll nominate them all for the transfer list in January. I really will. That I'm pretty sure that apart from anything, they're going to be mightily relieved of the change in management. They will have been truly excited when they experienced the training sessions with Eddie Howe, and he's wanting them to get forward. And so I really do feel that we're going to see something that we haven't seen for a very, very long time from all of the players, where they're really flying and flying forwards as well. I'm going to go 3-1.
3-1. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit more reserved. I think it's going to be a little bit tighter than we think, but I'm going to go 2-0. I think a 2-0 win. I'm still confident. I think those training videos that we've seen certainly instilled a bit of confidence to me. Be interesting to see what he changes. With Dubravka being on international duty, I certainly think Dubravka will be back in, and I think we'll see fullbacks in fullbacks positions. I just think we will see square pegs in square holes. I really do, and I think we'll see some players react. I certainly do, and let's just make one thing very clear: the support is very important on Saturday, and it's always important, but no more so on Saturday. And that means singing, and in those areas where people like to sing, keep that support going. Get the lads up for it, because it makes a big thing. It's the war flags display. I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure it'll be something like Eddie Howe's Black and White Army or whatever. It looks fantastic. It looks very good, but it's no good starting off well for 10 minutes and then going quiet if we're not 2-0 up. That support is going to be massive. And if, honestly, Brentford won't know what's hit them if we're in full effect on Saturday, will the lads?
Absolutely not. This is down to, we have waited 14 years to get Newcastle United out of a straitjacket that Mike Ashley put us in. We are now out of that straitjacket. Let's show our appreciation for that for an hour and a half. We are bigger than reacting to what's happened on the field. Let us drive what's happening on the field as supporters by getting behind the club and hitting Brentford with everything we've got. This place has been a cauldron where people have hated to come. Manchester United hated to come when they were Manchester United under Ferguson. Arsenal hated to come when they were with Arsene Wenger. People hated to come here. Let's make it that again, because we've been browbeaten for 14 years. We're not now. Let's get up, get at them, sort them out on Saturday, win, and then let us go on from there. We'll have a good Saturday night if that happens. That's got to be the plan. And that is a huge definite. It's a huge possibility. Let's make it reality.
A reality.
Yeah. Great stuff. Full of positivity. Thanks everybody watching. Over 500 watching live tonight, which is great. Thanks very much. It makes a big difference. And look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow night. Look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow night, and looking forward to seeing many people in the chat. It's going to be great to put names to faces. Take care, lads. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks a lot, guys. Keep the faith.